All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into, masculinity,
Yeah.
but like kind of a loaded topic, right?
Yeah.
Masculinity in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Specifically, we're looking at this article, The Disappearance of Manhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that title alone kind of throws down the gauntlet.
Yeah, it does.
Like, is manhood disappearing?
Right.
Or is it just evolving?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
It's a lot to unpack there.
Exactly. So let's dive in.
Okay.
So this article makes a really interesting point right off the bat.
Yeah.
That for centuries, manhood was like this fixed formula.
Right. It was pretty much, you're the provider,
Yeah.
the protector, the
Yeah.
cuff guy.
Yeah.
And, a lot of that goes back to societal needs and even biology.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You think back to like our hunter-gatherer days.
Right.
Men were out there
Hunting,
protecting,
bringing home the bacon.
literally. Yeah.
But then we have the Industrial Revolution, and suddenly it's all about being the breadwinner.
Yeah, the breadwinner model explodes onto the scene.
Yeah.
And it's all about, bringing home the paycheck,
Right.
supporting the family.
Yeah.
But now,
Well, and then on top of that, we've got we're
yeah.
challenging traditional gender roles.
Absolutely.
Big time.
Left and right.
Left and right.
Emotional intelligence is prized.
Yeah.
Maybe even more than physical strength sometimes now.
Right.
And so it's like, how do we
Yeah.
define that in this new world?
So it's no wonder that.
People are saying there's a crisis in masculinity.
Exactly. Some folks are like freaking out,
Yeah.
saying like masculinity is in crisis.
So let's dive into that crisis.
Okay.
Because that's a term that I hear thrown around a lot.
A lot.
But I don't know if we really know what it means.
Yeah. So the article defines it as this sense of unease
Okay.
or confusion that men are feeling
Okay.
because, those traditional markers of masculinity are being questioned.
Right. Or even, outright rejected,
Yeah.
like stoicism, competitiveness, risk-taking.
Yeah.
These were once like the hallmarks.
Of being a man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now they're like toxic.
Yeah. It's like,
You can't be too stoic,
don't be that strong, silent type, but
Yeah.
also like
but also be strong.
be strong and be successful.
Right.
So it's like a catch-22.
It's like a total paradox.
Right.
Yeah, and the article gives this really interesting example,
Yeah.
like male body image issues.
Oh, wow.
You would think with all this talk about, deconstructing masculinity,
Right.
that guys would feel less pressure
Yeah.
to conform to like these physical ideals.
You'd think so, right?
But the opposite is happening.
Wow.
They're bombarded with images
Oh, yeah.
of, the perfect male physique,
Okay.
just like women have been for decades.
Right. So the pressure is still there.
The pressure's still there.
The goalposts have just moved.
The goalposts have moved.
Yeah.
But
And then the article talks about the media portrayal of men,
yeah,
which often isn't very flattering.
not at all.
Think of like the bumbling sitcom
Right.
dad
Right.
or the emotionally clueless husband.
Oh, yeah.
These tropes are everywhere.
They're everywhere.
And the article brings up this book, The Boy Crisis, which
Yeah.
argues that these negative portrayals
Yeah.
actually contribute to real-world problems.
Yeah, they have real-world consequences.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
boys falling behind in school,
Oh, what?
fatherlessness,
Mhm. Right.
and all the negative outcomes that come with that.
So it's not just like harmless entertainment
No, it's shaping
Yeah.
how young people view themselves
and what they think is possible.
and what they think is possible. Exactly.
But it's not all doom and gloom, is it?
No, not at all.
There's got to be some positive shifts happening too,
Absolutely.
especially when we talk about like redefining success
Right.
for men.
Yeah. So the article talks about this move away
Okay.
from those traditional markers of success.
Okay.
The money,
The career.
the career, the power,
Yeah.
towards a more holistic definition
Okay.
that includes emotional intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
strong relationships,
Okay.
work-life balance.
So are we saying that like those things are more important than money and power now?
I think it's a shift.
Okay.
I think it's definitely a shift.
Right.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
This shift can be super challenging.
Yeah, I can see that.
You're basically asking men to like rewrite their entire operating system,
Yeah.
but without giving them a clear roadmap.
Right.
And the article points out
Yeah.
that this can lead to feelings of burnout,
Okay.
inadequacy,
Right.
kind of like what women
Oh,
experience
interesting.
and like the early waves of feminism
Oh, wow. Okay.
when they were suddenly expected to have it all.
So are we just setting men up for a different kind of failure?
That's a great question. That's what we're going to dive into in the next part.
Yeah, okay.
But before we do that,
Yeah.
there's one more piece of this puzzle we got to talk about.
Okay, what's that?
Fatherhood.
Okay, yeah, the article talks a lot about that.
It does.
And it's basically saying that fatherhood is not just some optional side gig.
Right.
It's central to how men define themselves and find their purpose.
Exactly.
But what's so interesting is
Yeah.
it kind of flips the script on the traditional father as provider model.
It does.
And it focuses on the nurturing,
Right.
the emotionally present aspects of fatherhood.
Yeah, and that's what's so fascinating.
But isn't that kind of ironic?
How so?
Well, if we're telling men to be more emotionally open
Right.
and involved as fathers,
Right.
but then we're also saying, like,
But society's still like,
go to work,
go to work.
climb the corporate ladder,
Right.
be the breadwinner.
Exactly.
How do those two things?
Yeah, how do we reconcile those two things?
Yeah.
That's a great question. And the article doesn't really have any easy answers,
Okay.
but it does pose this really thought-provoking question.
Okay.
What if reclaiming fatherhood is the key to redefining strength and leadership
Interesting.
in a way that benefits everyone?
Okay.
What if being a truly strong man
Okay.
means being fully present
Yeah.
and
Not
engaged
your kids.
with your children?
Yeah.
Modeling that vulnerability,
Yeah.
that emotional intelligence
For the next generation.
for the next generation. Exactly.
So it's like fatherhood becomes this training ground for this new, more balanced form of masculinity.
Exactly. And it's not just about dads,
Right,
it's
yeah.
about men in general.
Yeah.
Shifting our societal definition.
Of what it means to be a good man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it ties back to that idea of integrating those traditional strengths
Right.
with the modern values.
Yeah.
It's not about throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
It's about saying, okay,
Yeah.
those traditional strengths,
Like resilience.
resilience, leadership,
A willingness to protect.
a willingness to protect, absolutely.
But also
So those can coexist
with empathy.
with empathy,
vulnerability.
the emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence. Yeah.
So it's not that manhood is disappearing.
Right.
It's just that we're like
We're rewriting the script.
rewriting the script,
Yeah.
and it's messy.
It's messy. It's confusing.
Yeah.
But
It could be transformative.
it could be transformative. Exactly.
But we need to ground this conversation
Right.
in some hard facts.
Yeah.
So,
What about the science?
yeah, the article mentioned some research about biological differences between men and women.
Right. So this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Because societal expectations, they're constantly evolving.
Yeah.
But then you've got these biological factors, too,
Right.
that play a role
Right.
in how men experience
Yeah.
and express their masculinity. Yeah.
So, for example,
Yeah.
the article talks about how men and women's brains
Okay.
are wired differently,
Okay.
which can lead to differences in emotional processing,
Yeah.
communication styles.
Okay. So it's not just about like unlearning outdated social norms. It's
Right.
also about understanding
Understanding
like the biological underpinnings
biology.
of what it means to be male.
Exactly.
But doesn't that lead us into dangerous territory?
What do you mean?
Well, if we start talking about biological differences,
Right.
are we not just reinforcing?
Are we just going to fall back
Yeah.
on those old stereotypes?
Yeah.
That's a valid concern.
Right?
And the article addresses that head on.
Okay.
It's not saying,
Boys will be boys.
boys will be boys and,
Yeah, right,
they're
yeah.
stuck in this box.
Right.
It's just saying, let's start from a place of understanding.
Okay.
Men and women might face different challenges
Okay.
and need different kinds of support.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and then there's the elephant in the room,
What's that?
men's mental health.
Right.
That the article really
Big time, Dad.
emphasizes
Yeah.
the importance of breaking down that stigma.
Yeah, that stigma is huge.
Yeah.
And,
The tough guy mentality.
the tough guy mentality prevents so many men
Right.
from seeking help.
Yeah.
They're told to just suck it up,
Right.
deal with it on their own.
Yeah.
And as the article points out,
Yeah.
this can have devastating consequences.
So how do we change that?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
How do we create a culture
Yeah.
where men feel safe
To be vulnerable.
to be vulnerable,
To be vulnerable. Yeah.
to ask for help?
To ask for help.
Okay.
That's where positive role models come in.
Okay.
I think we need to showcase
Oh.
men who are living proof
Okay.
that you can be strong and sensitive,
Okay.
successful and supportive.
Yeah.
Men who are willing to talk openly about their struggles.
You know who seek help when they need it?
Yeah.
who prioritize their mental and emotional well-being.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like a new playbook for manhood.
Exactly. It's like a whole new definition of what it means to be a man.
Yeah, celebrating the full spectrum.
The full spectrum.
Of what it means to be male.
Exactly.
So this isn't just about men's issues.
Right.
It's about creating a more just and equitable world.
Absolutely.
For everyone.
And everyone.
Because when we challenge these outdated notions of masculinity,
right,
we're also challenging the systems. That perpetuate gender inequality.
Exactly.
And that benefits everyone.
That benefits everyone.
So,
you've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, it's a human issue.
It's a human issue, not just a men's issue.
Right.
We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
In this first part of our dive.
Well, yeah, maybe we should take a breather. Let our listeners process.
Yeah.
And we'll be back soon to dig even deeper.
Sounds good.
So we were talking about how important it is to have these, like, positive representations of masculinity for younger generations.
Right.
But, like, what does that actually look like in the real world? The
Huh?
article talks about, like, a new playbook.
Right.
But, like, how do we put that into practice?
Right. Well, the article doesn't just focus on the problems.
Okay.
It actually highlights some inspiring examples
Okay.
of men who are, like, redefining manhood
Okay.
in the 21st century.
Okay.
And one area where we see this happening is in fatherhood.
Okay.
Which, as we discussed, the article really puts front and center.
Yeah.
And it's not about abandoning those traditional strengths.
Okay.
It's about integrating them
Okay.
with a more nurturing, emotionally present approach.
So it's not just about bringing home the bacon anymore.
Exactly.
It's about being present.
Yeah, being there,
Yeah.
both physically and emotionally.
Okay, so are there, like, specific examples of fathers who are doing this well?
Yeah, the article mentions this study where they found a growing number of fathers who were actively involved in their children's emotional lives.
That's great.
These dads are, having open conversations about feelings,
Right.
teaching their sons about consent and respect,
Right.
and challenging those old school notions of what it means to be a real man.
Right, like leading by example.
Exactly, leading by example.
Showing that strength and vulnerability can go together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And just imagine the impact that could have on breaking down those harmful stereotypes
Absolutely.
we were talking about earlier.
But it's not just about dads.
Right.
What about men who aren't fathers?
Right. How are they navigating this
How are they navigating this whole thing?
This shift.
Yeah.
Well, one area where we see this playing out is in the realm of mental health. Remember how we talked about that tough guy mentality?
Yeah.
Being a barrier?
For men seeking help?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, more and more men are bucking that trend.
That's great.
They're speaking out
Okay.
about their struggle.
Anxiety and depression?
Anxiety, depression,
Yeah.
all sorts of mental health challenges.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like there's less shame around that now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is great.
It's a huge step forward.
It's a huge step forward.
And it's like they're realizing that asking for help is actually a sign of strength.
Not weakness.
Not weakness, exactly.
Yeah.
And the article points to this really interesting trend.
Okay.
The rise of men's support groups.
Oh, wow.
And online communities.
So they have these safe spaces.
These safe spaces where they can connect.
Yeah.
Share their experiences.
That's great.
Find support.
Yeah.
It's like they're creating
It's like a new brotherhood.
a new brotherhood, exactly.
But, like, based on vulnerability. Right.
Based on vulnerability.
Instead of, like, hunting mammoths.
Exactly right.
Right.
It's a modern version.
It's a modern version.
Of those ancient male bonding rituals.
I love that.
But let's be real for a second.
Okay.
This shift isn't happening in a vacuum.
Right. We don't live in a vacuum.
We live in a world that still
Yeah.
places a lot of emphasis
On traditional markers of success.
Exactly.
Money.
Money status.
Power.
Power, yeah.
So how do we
reconcile
how do we reconcile that?
this new approach?
Yeah, with, like, the pressures of the real world.
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And the article, doesn't shy away from that.
Okay.
It acknowledges that there's still a lot of pressure on men
To achieve
to provide,
divide.
to climb that corporate ladder.
Yeah.
But
are we starting to see a shift?
I think we are.
Okay.
I think we're starting to see a shift in priorities.
So maybe it's not all about the corner office.
The corner office.
A fancy car.
The fancy car.
Yeah.
The article highlights
Yeah.
the growing number of men
Okay.
who are prioritizing
Yep.
work-life balance,
Okay.
who are opting out of the rat race
They could pursue their passions.
to pursue their passions.
That's great.
Maybe they're
We're just spending time with your kids.
spending time with their kids,
Right?
finding fulfillment
Yeah.
in creative endeavors,
Yeah.
community involvement.
Yeah.
It's like they're redefining success.
On their own terms.
On their own terms, exactly.
But let's be real.
Yeah.
This isn't happening overnight.
No.
Right.
It's a process.
Yeah.
And not everyone is on board.
There's going to be pushback. There's going to be pushback.
Resistance. People who feel threatened.
Absolutely. By this change.
Yeah.
By this new definition.
Or this new definition of manhood.
That manhood. Yeah. I can see why some men might feel that way.
Yeah.
It's like the rules of the game are changing.
Right.
And they're not sure how to play anymore.
You don't know the new rules.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to have these conversations.
With empathy.
With empathy, with understanding.
Yeah.
We need to meet men where they are.
Right.
Acknowledge their fears, their anxieties, and help them navigate this shift in a way that feels safe.
And empowering.
And empowering, exactly.
So it's not about
telling them they're wrong.
Or outdated.
It's
about saying.
It's about inviting them to be part of this evolution.
Okay, but how do we do that?
How do we do that?
In a way that's like constructive.
Right. Well, the article offers some really helpful advice on how to approach these conversations.
Okay.
It suggests starting by listening.
Okay.
Really listening.
Okay.
To men's concerns.
Yeah. Okay.
And trying to understand where their resistance is coming from.
So listening more than lecturing.
Exactly.
But what if they're just not open to change?
What if they're just stuck in their ways?
Yeah.
Well, the article reminds us.
Yeah.
Change takes time.
Okay.
You can't force anyone to embrace a new way of thinking.
Right.
Especially when it comes to something as personal as their identity.
What's their identity? Yeah.
But you can plant seeds.
You can plant seeds.
Right.
You can offer different perspectives, and you can create a space where they feel safe to explore these issues.
On their own terms.
On their own terms.
Exactly.
It's a good point. It's like
planting a tree.
Yeah.
You don't see the results right away.
Right.
But with time and care, it can grow into something beautiful and strong.
But we also need to be realistic.
Yeah.
There are going to be men who are actively resistant.
Who are going to fight this.
To this shift, who see it as a threat.
As a threat to their way of life.
Yeah. So how do we engage with those folks?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
And the article doesn't pretend to have all the answers.
Okay.
But it does offer some valuable insights on how to approach those conversations.
Okay.
With empathy, with respect, and a willingness to understand.
Okay.
And we're going to delve into those strategies in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, cool.
But before we get there, what's resonating with you the most about this discussion?
As we're talking about this resistance, I keep thinking about all the comments you see online.
Oh, yeah.
Like whenever there's an article about, evolving masculinity, it's like the same arguments every time.
Oh, totally.
Like men are being emasculated. The feminist agenda is ruining everything.
Yeah.
It gets so heated.
It gets really intense.
Oh, and this article actually talks about this backlash. And it says that some of it comes from like a genuine place of
loss and confusion.
Yeah. Like imagine if you built your whole identity around a certain set of beliefs.
Right.
And suddenly they're being challenged.
And even ridiculed.
Yeah, and ridiculed.
Like it's got to feel threatening.
Yeah, it's got to disorient.
Right, like the rug's pulled out from under you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But does that excuse like...
It doesn't excuse the anger.
The hostility that you see?
No, the article is very clear.
Okay.
There's no justification for like, hateful or violent rhetoric.
Okay.
But it does suggest that if we want to have productive conversations with these guys, we need to acknowledge those feelings.
Okay, so meet them with empathy?
Empathy, not judgment.
Okay, but how do you do that?
How do you do that?
Like if someone's coming at you...
It's tough.
With all this anger.
It's really...
And these accusations. Right. It's hard to stay calm.
Right. How do you stay open-minded?
Yeah.
Well, the article has some tips.
Okay.
First, choose the right time and place.
Okay.
Don't try to have this conversation.
When everyone's yelling.
When you're in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
Or if you're both distracted.
Find a neutral space.
Find a neutral space.
Yeah.
Talk calmly.
Okay.
Respectfully.
So not in the middle of a football game.
Not under a football game.
Okay.
Right.
But even if you find the right setting.
Right.
How do you actually approach the conversation?
Well, the article recommends
Okay.
starting by actively listening.
Okay.
Really try to understand the other person's perspective.
Even if I don't agree?
Even if you don't agree.
Okay.
Ask clarifying questions.
Okay.
Reflect back what you're hearing.
Yeah.
Make sure they feel heard.
So they feel safe to express themselves.
Safe to express themselves.
Even if I totally disagree.
Even if their views are different.
Okay, but what if they're just not willing to listen?
What if they're just totally stuck?
Yeah.
In their beliefs.
Yeah.
Well, the article says there are no guarantees.
Okay.
You can't force someone to change their mind.
Okay.
Especially about something.
Yeah.
So personal.
Yeah.
But sometimes just having the conversation, planting that seed, can be enough.
Yeah.
It might not change their mind right away.
Okay.
But it could make them question their assumptions.
Yeah.
And that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it's like planting a tree.
Exactly.
You don't see the results right away, but, with time
and care,
it can grow into something beautiful.
Beautiful and strong.
And I think it's important to remember.
What's that?
This isn't just about men talking to men.
Right.
Women have a role to play here, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the article talks about how this is a societal issue.
It is.
Not just a men's issue.
Not just a men's issue.
And women are often on the receiving end of the negative consequences.
All right, so they experience it firsthand.
Of traditional masculinity.
Exactly.
So they have a unique perspective.
They do.
Yeah, and their voices are important.
Their voices need to be heard.
And I think sometimes women are actually more effective
interesting.
at challenging these outdated notions than men.
Why do you think that is?
I think because they can see the flaws more clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not as invested in
upholding those norms.
Those norms, yeah.
That's a really interesting point.
And the article says that women can actually model healthier forms of masculinity for the men in their lives.
Exactly.
So through their words.
Their actions. Just their presence.
Yeah.
They can show men.
It's okay to be vulnerable.
It's okay to be vulnerable.
Express their emotions.
Right.
Challenge those gender roles.
Yeah, it's like a collective effort.
Yeah.
Men and women working together.
To create a more balanced world.
Absolutely, more equitable world.
Yeah.
For everyone.
And I want to circle back to what you said about role models. Yeah. Especially for younger generations.
Right, they're still figuring things out.
Yeah, they're forming their identities.
Exactly.
And so seeing these men who are navigating this shift successfully, who are embodying these qualities.
The strength, empathy, the vulnerability.
It's so inspiring.
It shows them it's possible.
Yeah. There's another way.
There's another way.
Yeah.
You don't have to conform to those old stereotypes.
Yeah, and it's not just like celebrity.
Right.
It can be everyday guys.
Everyday guys.
Yeah, fathers, teachers, coaches.
Mentors.
Yeah, anyone who's living a life that reflects these values.
Exactly.
And the more we lift up those examples.
Right.
The more we normalize this new definition of manhood.
Normalize it.
Yeah, and create a world where young men...
Where boys and young men...
Feel empowered. To embrace their full selves.
To be themselves.
As we've been talking, I've been thinking this whole idea of the disappearance of manhood.
Yeah.
It's almost like a misnomer.
Yeah.
It's not that it's disappearing.
It's not going extinct.
It's that it's being redefined.
It's being redefined.
Expanded.
Expanded. And I think ultimately enriched.
I agree. I think it's a transformation.
A transformation.
Not an extinction.
Yeah. And it's
messy. It's challenging.
It's challenging, but
it's exciting.
It's exciting. It could be beautiful.
It could be really beautiful.
A world where men are free to be themselves.
Yeah.
To embrace all of it.
The strengths, the vulnerabilities, and contribute.
In meaningful ways.
In meaningful and fulfilling ways.
Yeah. So I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
That's good.
But I want to leave our listeners with a question.
What does the future of masculinity look like to you?
Wow.
What kind of world?
What kind of world
do you want to create?
Yeah.
For yourself.
Myself.
Your children.
My kids.
Your generations.
That's a powerful question.
Yeah, and it's one that we all need to think about.
We all need to grapple with that.
Because it's not going to be handed to us.
Right. We're creating it.
We're creating it, right?
Through our choices.
Our actions.
Our conversations. And hopefully through deep dives like this, we can keep exploring these issues.
Absolutely.
And create a more balanced world.
A more fulfilling world.
For everyone.
For everyone.
So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening, everybody.